I am the illegitimate daughter of the family, cared for by my legitimate elder sister since childhood. In my past life, my elder sister married the regent, who was unable to consummate the marriage. She wept every day and died of depression. I married the top scholar, who came from a poor background. He despises my vulgarity, I mock his pedantry. Life is in utter chaos. In this life, both my elder sister and I have been reborn. My elder sister says, "Shall we switch?" I agreed without hesitation. I'll switch. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When the imperial decree for the arranged marriage arrived, my elder sister sighed deeply, and I knew she had also been reborn. In her previous life, she had joyfully stepped into the bridal sedan, becoming the esteemed and noble princess consort of the regent. Yet later, she lived in melancholy and passed away before reaching the age of 30. I asked curiously, "Isn't the regent good?" "Good? What's so good about him?" my elder sister spat out disdainfully. "He's just a silver spearhead that looks impressive but is useless in action." As she spoke, she picked up her handkerchief and began to cry again. "What does his incompetence have to do with us?" I comforted her. My elder sister blushed deeply, saying I wouldn't understand since I'd never been married. How could I not understand? In my past life, I too had been married. To demonstrate his appreciation for talent, my father, relying on his position as the prime minister, forcibly betrothed me, his illegitimate daughter, to the top scholar of the court, Zhang Rang. Although Zhang Rang was handsome, he was arrogant and stubborn, making little progress in his official career. My father looked down on me as an illegitimate daughter and couldn't be bothered to help him. Zhang Rang and I were incompatible in temperament, constantly at odds with each other. As a poor couple, we faced endless hardships, and our life together was nothing but chaos and strife. Later, he simply took a concubine and had 2 children within 3 years, deliberately showing me a cold shoulder. The past is truly too painful to recall. My elder sister grabbed me firmly, her eyes filled with urgency. "The imperial decree cannot be defied. Since you dislike Zhang Rang, why don't I marry him instead, and you take my place as the regent's consort? How about that?" My elder sister has a gentle temperament. If she were to marry the regent as in my previous life, I fear she would still end up in tears and die of sorrow. How could I watch her fall into the fire pit again? I agreed without hesitation. "All right." My birth mother came from a humble background and passed away when I was young. My father's mind was entirely occupied with his official career, and my stepmother disliked me, telling me to stay out of her sight. Only my elder sister from the main wife was kind to me. She would give me her old clothes, plead for me when I was punished to kneel, and scold those snobbish maids and servants who bullied me. But most of the time, my elder sister was too busy to care for me. She had to learn music, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, and etiquette to become a model of a noble lady as soon as possible. For me, as long as I have food to eat, clothes to wear, and am not bullied by others, I am completely satisfied. I don't care at all whether a man loves me or is willing to touch me. And so, on the same day as my legitimate sister, I got married, and under the cover of the bridal veil, I boarded the other's bridal sedan chair. From then on, we exchanged names. My name is Xin Shuiwe, and hers is Xin Wanqing. Moonlight gleamed like silk, and red candles burned brightly. The regent's residence was filled with festive joy. I was hungry, so I dug out some red dates, longans, and peanuts from under the quilt and started munching away. When the regent entered, I had already hidden the leftover fruit peels and was sitting upright on the wedding bed, poised and proper. With my veil lifted, I gazed at the man before me, my face full of anticipation. His name is Gu Jingyun, the young emperor's uncle, and he will provide me with food and lodging from now on. His face is as handsome as jade, his posture tall and straight, and he has a hidden illness. It couldn't be more perfect. The moment he saw me, Gu Jingyan looked shocked and blurted out, "It's you." I was surprised. "Your Highness, have you met me before?" "No." A fleeting, unreadable emotion flashed in Gu Jingyan's eyes as he smiled ambiguously. I suddenly felt guilty because of that laugh, always feeling like I had been seen through, but I was absolutely certain that he had never seen my legitimate sister in me. Gu Jingyan sat next to me on the bed, his jade white, slender hands slowly approaching, gently brushing my cheek. It seemed like he was going to touch me. I sat stiffly, full of vigilance. Before getting married, my sister and I had shared our experiences from our previous lives. She said Gu Jingyan was cold-hearted and emotionless, a man of few words, and completely uninterested in women. She had even told my legitimate sister bluntly, "This king is impotent, so you don't need to waste your efforts in the future, thinking of this." I felt a little more at ease. Men, of course, are unwilling to admit their flaws right away. They always have to put on a serious act first. Only then can they pretend not to be interested in me and save face. I'd like to see how far he can pretend. Gu Jingyan's fingertips slowly landed on my lips, then gently brushed across them. He stared at his finger, clicked his tongue twice, and laughed. My vision went black. On it was smeared my bright red lipstick and a thin pink peanut skin. Was it tasty? He asked. I felt utterly humiliated, so I simply decided to throw caution to the wind and lifted the quilt to show him. If it wasn't tasty, how could I have eaten so much? Gu Jingyan suppressed a laugh, his breath warm against my ear. Though his tone carried not a hint of sincerity, the fruit symbolizes the blessing of early childbirth. It seems my consort is already eager to bear children for me. My gaze involuntarily fell on a certain part of his body, eyes filled with sympathy. He was still pretending. The next moment, however, he pushed me down onto the bed, his hard, powerful body pressed down, blocking most of the light. The candlelight flickered, and all I could see was the festive red. He unbuckled my belt. His movements fierce, as if he was about to devour me whole. He was actually serious. I screamed in fright. Concubine is unwell. Your Highness, please spare my life." Only then did the mischievous hand stop. Gu Jingyan remained in a prostrate position, looking at me with a leisurely air. "You must tell me early if the princess consort is unwell in the future." Yes, I will definitely be frequently unwell in the future." Only after Gu Jingyan left did I come to my senses. He was clearly forcing me to beg for mercy on purpose, so he could leave with a clear conscience. What a cunning man. I had a good night's sleep and followed him into the palace the next day, where the young emperor politely addressed me as Imperial Aunt. At that moment, I finally realized how powerful my status actually was. Good days are coming. The regent's palace boasts beautiful scenery, with pavilions and towers complementing each other. Having eaten and drunk my fill, I wove a garland from the flowers picked in the back garden and wore it on my head, spinning, jumping, preening, and humming a little tune. Tired from playing, I soaked the big watermelon in the pond of the royal garden and lay on the rocking chair under the shade to cool off. Xiaosui fanned me with a palm leaf fan, grumbling in frustration. "On your wedding night, the prince didn't even perform the ceremonial toast with you, and you still have the heart to play." I shrugged my hands and said nonchalantly, "He didn't get things done. It's not that I'm unwilling to serve, so don't blame me." Xiaosui was my elder sister's maid, who had never shown me much respect. During the marriage swap, my sister sent Xiaosui to accompany me, fearing our parents might notice something amiss. To be honest, I'm more worried about my elder sister now. Zhang Rang isn't a bad person by nature, but he's picked up all the bad habits of a scholar. I remember in my previous life, on the night of my wedding, I waited too long in the bridal chamber and was so hungry I couldn't bear it, so I searched for fruit under the covers to eat. When Zhang Rang entered the room, he happened to see me grinning and cracking peanuts. His face changed instantly, as if he had been insulted, but he still suppressed his anger and politely reasoned with me. "Miss Shen Heir, today is our wedding day. This veil should be lifted by your husband. You lifted the veil yourself without waiting for your husband to arrive. Did your husband do something wrong to displease you?" I also reasoned with him. "I'm just hungry, don't overthink it. At worst, I'll cover myself again, and you can lift the veil one more time." Zhang Rang was indignant. Marriage is a significant event, and not a single step of the ceremony can be wrong. For Miss Shen II to be so careless and perfunctory clearly shows she doesn't take me, Zhang, seriously. Anger welled up in me, and I threw the peanut shells to the ground, scolding, "It's just a little something to eat. You've had your fill in the front courtyard, but I haven't eaten all day. If I don't eat now, I'll have to go hungry until tomorrow morning. And that's a terrible feeling, Zhang. I just ate a few fruits. It's not like I broke any heavenly laws. Is there a need to make such a big deal out of it?" His face was flushed, and his hand trembled as he pointed at me, saying disappointedly, "I thought the daughters of aristocratic families were the most courteous, but he ed for a long time." I stuck out my tongue and made a face at him. He turned pale with anger and stormed off on the spot. From then on, we never had peace again. He would always nitpick about trivial matters, endlessly criticizing my faults. Finally, he smashed plates and bowls, and I tore up the poem he had just written. Neither of us would let the other have the last word. Good thing, I'm finally rid of him in this life. I reckon it's about time, so I pull out the watermelon that's been chilling in the water. With a crisp crack, the big round watermelon splits in half, and I scoop out the flesh with a spoon. Pure bliss. Do you want some? I offered the other half to Xiaotsue. Xiaotsue rolled her eyes. Humph, why the attitude? I'm the regent princess now. That position clearly belongs to the eldest miss. Xiaotsue's eyes welled up with tears. I don't know what Miss was thinking, giving up the perfectly good position of the regent's princess consort to switch with you and marry that poor scholar turned Zhuang Yuan. Holding half a watermelon, I said leisurely, you just don't understand. Having lived as a young lady accustomed to luxury since childhood, with no worries in the world, she wanted to pursue a passionate, dramatic love. How does that saying go again? Ah yes, well-fed, well-bred, then comes the lustful bed. I'm different. I can barely manage to eat my fill and stay warm. How could I have energy to think of anything else? I married into this family just for a bite to eat. I gestured for her to lean in closer, as if to share a secret. Xiaotsue's eyes grew wider and wider. What? The regent is impotent. I quickly jumped up and covered her mouth. Why are you shouting so loud? Are you stupid? Xiaotsue was struggling to breathe under my hand, her face almost white. The regent king is impotent. That's a good thing. It saves your grandma from having to serve him later. Understand? I don't know if she heard me or not. She was still flailing her arms and screaming. The little girl's attitude was terrible. She couldn't handle such a small matter. I shook my head helplessly and let her go. Turn around. But then I saw Gu Jingyan sitting in the rocking chair I had just been in, happily munching on watermelon. The watermelon is good, he praised from the bottom of his heart. So Xiaotsue was screaming just now because she saw Gu Jingyan behind me. My legs instantly went weak. I tripped over something and uncontrollably fell forward. He reached out with his long arm, wrapped it around my slender waist, and let me half lie in his embrace. Gu Jingyan was dressed in a dark purple brocade robe, his long hair gathered by a jade crown, exuding an air of nobility, even viewed from the angle of his jawline. His face was perfectly flawless. I didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Like a fish on a chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered, seeing the situation was not good, Xiaotsue had already slipped away. Gu Jingyan had a faint smile on his face as he slowly scooped a spoonful of watermelon heart and brought it to my mouth. Open your mouth. I numbly opened my mouth and numbly swallowed. Gu Jingyan pulled me closer into his arms and asked with a smile. The queen just said, what's wrong with me? I was terrified, and said against my will, Regent. You're perfect in every way. He was very pleased and fed me another spoonful of watermelon. After I chewed a few bites, he placed his hand by my lips. Trembling, I spit the watermelon seeds into his palm, watching him again as he elegantly dried the water from his hands with a pristine white cloth. His fingers were long and beautiful. The way he wiped his hands was eerily reminiscent of an executioner cleaning his blade before a kill, pressed tightly against his chest. I could feel the rise and fall of his breathing, the gradually deepening rhythm of his breath. I'm afraid I'm going to die. A long, long time passed. He didn't speak, and the surroundings were so quiet that only the cicadas in the trees could be heard, but in the end, he just used a handkerchief to wipe the corners of my mouth. Don't forget. You're returning home the day after tomorrow. For the past 2 nights, Gu Jingyan still hasn't come to my room. However, the course of events has already gone awry. In my previous life, when my legitimate elder sister returned home, Gu Jingyan didn't accompany her. I don't know what went wrong, but his attitude towards me is very strange. I also don't know how much of my conversation with Xiaotsue he overheard. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed, back at the Shen residence. My legitimate sister and Zhang Reng had already arrived. Father and my legitimate mother clearly knew about our swapped marriage, but they couldn't erupt on the spot. They could only suppress their anger, their expressions more spectacular than the last. My legitimate sister secretly winked at me, and then gave me a deep bow. Greetings, elder sister. I took advantage of her, calling her little sister with immense affection. After a few days apart, my legitimate sister looked even better. Her complexion was rosy, her eyes sparkled, and her demeanor exuded the charming allure of a mature woman. I secretly glanced at Zhang Reng, my husband from my previous life. He was gazing at my legitimate sister with eyes full of smiles. His gaze almost glued to her. That was a look I wouldn't have seen even if I died in my past life. A hint of sorrow flashed through my heart. indeed, I was inferior to my elder sister in every way. Men always preferred gentle and elegant women like her. With a sigh, I turned my head only to realize Gu Jingyan had been staring at me the whole time, his expression displeased. I was so frightened that I dared not look at Zhang Reng again. Later, when father had tea with his two sons-in-law, my elder sister and I followed our stepmother to the inner hall, where we were severely reprimanded. My elder sister shielded me, taking all the blame upon herself. Wanqing knew nothing, it was all my doing. Anyway, the rice is already cooked. What's done is done. My husband treats me extremely well, and I am truly fond of him. Although he comes from humble origins, he is well read in poetry and literature. With an upright and graceful demeanor, he is a rare gentleman in this world. I was utterly baffled. Could the rigid and pedantic Zhang Reng really be so admirable in her eyes? My stepmother's face turned green with anger. She wanted to lash out at me, but since I was already the regent princess, she could only swallow her pride. After lunch, I scurried off to the pavilion to find my stepsister. Just as I reached the wisteria trellis, Zhang Reng beat me to it. The moment my stepsister saw him, her eyes lit up. She nestled into his arms like a small bird, and asked sweetly, "Did you meet my elder sister today, my lord? What do you think of her?" Zhang Reng let out a cold snort and said disdainfully, "The regent's consort is your sister, my lady, so I shouldn't speak out of turn, but since you asked, I can only say this in private. Speak, though she is the legitimate daughter, she lacks any trace of a noble lady's demeanor. Her words and actions are crude, her manners lacking. Compared to your cultured and refined self, the difference is like heaven and earth. Thank goodness I married you. If I had married her, I would have been truly unlucky for 8 lifetimes. I clenched my fists in anger, the urge to argue with him stirring within me again. My elder sister covered his mouth and chided. My sister and I have a good relationship. You are not to speak ill of her in the future, all right, but in my heart, there will always only be you, my lady. You have no need to be jealous of anyone. The two exchanged a smile, their eyes full of affection, truly deeply in love. At first, they were just embracing, but later their passion grew so intense it was hard to control, and before they knew it, they were kissing. My legitimate sister stood on her tiptoes, her head tilted back as she embraced Zhang Reng's neck, her pretty face slightly flushed, her eyes closed in enjoyment. Zhang Reng's hands rested on her slender waist, his eyelashes fluttering slightly, his breathing heavy. I didn't dare to look any longer and quickly turned away, only to bump into a firm chest, nearly making me scream. Gu Jingyan always appeared out of nowhere. I frowned, looking at him with undisguised disdain. Look, what are you looking at? Don't you know it's rude to stare at the scene behind us? Gu Jingyan merely glanced back, then his gaze returned to me. Are you jealous? He asked in a low voice. Before I could understand what he meant, he had already pulled me away, huffing and puffing, to a place far enough not to disturb anyone else. The summer air was muggy, the scent of lotus faint, and cicadas dozed in the trees. My wrist was gripped painfully, and I shook him off. What are you doing, seeing that couple so affectionate, so deeply in love? He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. Are you envious, jealous, upset? From the moment you entered the front hall, your eyes haven't left Zhang Reng. Just now, you even sneaked to the pavilion to peek at him. Can you really not let him go? I forced a bitter smile. How could that be? Gu Jingyan, however, wore a stern expression, exuding an intimidating aura without even raising his voice. Shen Wanqing, look into my eyes and answer this, prince. I really didn't. I tried hard to explain, I just wanted to have some private sisterly talk, but who knew Zhang Reng suddenly went over. It was only when I saw Gu Jingyan's eyes gradually narrow that I realized something was wrong. He was tricking me. My name is Shen Wanqing. And when he called out my real name, I didn't react at all. The truth is out. My heart skipped a beat, and I wished I could slap myself hard several times. Your Highness, this matter is a long story, and it's all my fault. My legs went weak, and I was on the verge of tears. I couldn't very well explain to him that both my legitimate sister and I had been reborn, and that she disliked him for being impotent, and this life, she wanted to marry someone who could perform. I could only say, I was greedy for wealth and bent on currying favor with the Prince Regent, so I tricked my legitimate sister into believing how wonderful Zhang Reng was, and persuaded her to marry him. Gu Jingyan let out an "oh," raising an eyebrow slightly, and pressed on, tell me, just how good is Zhang Reng? I really couldn't make it up anymore. so I dropped to my knees. Your Highness, spare my life. Everyone says the Regent King is young and talented, at just 20 years old. He has taken all power into his own hands, and no one in the court or country dares to defy him. Beneath his noble and elegant exterior, he hides a ruthless heart, decisive and killing. I knew I couldn't escape, Your Highness. How do you intend to deal with me? Punishing you alone won't suffice. With one hand behind his back and the other idly spinning the jade ring on his index finger, he paced back and forth before me. Defying imperial decrees, deceiving your king, the entire Shen household cannot escape responsibility for this. My face turned deathly pale, my body swaying unsteadily, yet I mustered the courage to speak. Deal with others as you wish. But could Your Highness spare my sister? Gu Jingyan crouched down, his eyes level with mine. So protective of Shen Shuiwei, from childhood till now, my sister has been the only one who's truly been kind to me. Has this prince not been good to you? After becoming the regent princess, my belly was round and full, I wore silk and brocade clothes, my hair was adorned with golden hairpins and phoenix coronets, and when I went out, I had fragrant carriages and canopies. I was richer than I could have ever imagined. Although this good fortune only lasted for a brief 3 days, I had no regrets about dying. I nodded vigorously, acknowledging this fleetingly happy life. The prince was very good to me, it was my fault. I shouldn't have deceived him. Gu Jingyan straightened up, his stern expression melting away like an iceberg, his brows relaxing, adding a touch of captivating beauty to his features. For a moment, I forgot to look away. Why are you still kneeling? He sighed softly and ruffled my hair. Come home with me, my poor little thing. By the time I reacted, he had already walked several steps away. I followed him closely, suspecting I had misheard, and confirmed with him in disbelief. Does the prince already know the truth and is still willing to let me return? What else? He said grumpily. I glanced towards the pavilion. Behind the cover of the flowering trees, 2 figures, intertwined, were faintly visible. I lowered my head, picking at my nails, and mumbled softly, that's right, my sister probably can't go back with you. Before leaving, my elder sister's eyes brimmed with tears. May father and mother take good care of yourselves, do not worry about me. For I shall return often to visit. Our stepmother was deeply moved, while father glanced at me, signaling that I should say a few words as well. Not one for pretty speeches, I simply said, same here. Father and the principal wife saw us off all the way from the main hall to the gate. Compared to the distance between Gu Jingyan and me, the two behind us appeared far more intimate. Zhang Rang held my elder sister's hand, calling her Wanqing repeatedly. Wanqing, if you ever miss home, I'll accompany you back any time. Wanqing, what do you want to eat tonight? Your husband will cook for you personally. I felt goosebumps all over my body. Gu Jingyan coughed lightly, suddenly stopped, and said amiably to my legitimate sister, this king thinks that the name Wanqing is more suitable for my princess. Why don't you two sisters switch names? My legitimate elder sister paused for a moment, then suddenly understood, and nodded at me approvingly. My father and legitimate mother exchanged glances, understanding each other perfectly, and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This meant the Regent King already knew the truth and would no longer pursue the matter, but Zhang Rang disagreed. Why? He rushed forward to confront Gu Jingyan. Although my Wanqing is born of a concubine, to me she is a unique treasure in this world. My official rank may not be high, but I will never allow anyone to bully her. Even if you are the regent who stands above all but one, you cannot casually strip my wife of her maiden name. He held his head high, glaring at Gu Jingyan through gritted teeth. Gu Jingyan took a deep breath, looking at him coldly, unsure what to say. That's just how Zhang Rang was. When his temper flared, he was like a stubborn mule, unstoppable. In my previous life, I tried to persuade him to change this bad habit, but he not only took my good intentions for granted. His temper actually worsened, offending people everywhere in officialdom. My legitimate sister came over and tugged at Zhang Rang's sleeve. Husband, don't get excited yet. I'll explain this to you when we get home. I thought my legitimate sister would surely be scolded, and I was ready to stand up for her. Unexpectedly, Zhang Rang, who usually held grudges, instantly reined in all his sharpness upon hearing her words. He held her hand and said softly, okay, I'll listen to my wife. I was stunned on the spot. The carriage swayed gently, and Gu Jingyan leaned back on the soft cushion, closing his eyes to rest. I sat obediently to one side, not daring to breathe. My elder sister had deliberately returned to the Shen residence before me to prepare our parents, they were cautious and had already given orders to everyone in advance, ensuring no one would reveal any flaws. The only possibility was that Gu Jingyan had overheard the conversation between me and Xiaotsue that day. Then did he also hear me say he had a hidden illness? Shen Wanqing, what are you thinking? Gu Jingyan suddenly spoke. I was startled and quickly laughed it off. I reckon Zhang Reng must have found out by now that the one he married is actually my elder sister Shen Shuwei, not me. Heh, Gu Jingyan leaned forward, frowning. You still can't let him go. No, no, no. I waved my hands repeatedly. He loves my sister deeply and is willing to stand up for her. Even at the risk of offending the prince, I am happy that my sister has found such a good man. Gu Jingyan's brows furrowed even tighter. Are you saying that I am not as good as Zhang Reng, and marrying me would be a disservice to you? I continued to wave my hands, whispering, I'm willing to switch with my sister, naturally, because I want to marry the prince. His expression softened slightly, and he patted the spot next to him, motioning for me to sit closer. After a long while, he spoke in a cool, detached tone. From now on, you will openly be the regent prince's consort, managing the household affairs, and you must no longer harbor thoughts of others. He has acknowledged me. I suppose he has a physical ailment and doesn't have high expectations for his princess, only that she be loyal to him. I happily agreed. Your Highness, rest assured, from now on, you will be the only one in my heart, and the regent's mansion will be my only home. Gu Jingyan gave a light cough, turned his head away, his face slightly flushed. In my previous life, Zhang Reng never let me handle household affairs. He despised me for being careless, having never learned to keep accounts, fearing I would make mistakes in his records. He would rather do everything himself, staying up late into the night with a candle, fiddling with the abacus. During the annual ancestral worship, he would confess before the ancestral tablets of the Zhang family, marrying an unworthy wife is my fault. On the surface, it's self-reflection, but in reality, it's scolding me, and in this life, Gu Jingyan actually entrusted the vast family estate of the regent's mansion to me with confidence, instructing the butler to teach me every detail. I was full of ambition, vowing not to betray his trust. The night had passed the second watch, and I was so drowsy that I kept nodding off, eventually falling asleep unintentionally. I only realized when I felt my body being lifted lightly. Gu Jingyan had picked me up. He removed the account books from my lap and said gently, why push yourself so hard? Leave it for tomorrow and get some rest now. I drooped my eyelids and mumbled, whatever my elder sister can do, I must learn too. I can't let you feel like marrying me was a loss. Indeed, you mustn't shortchange this prince. Gu Jingyan placed me on the inner side of the bed, pulled the quilt over, and covered me. Then he took off his shoes and socks, naturally lay down on the outer side, pulled a quilt over himself, and closed his eyes. I suddenly snapped awake. Gu Jingyan was lying right beside me, just planning to sleep like this. Your Highness, Your Highness. I called out several times and pushed him twice, but he didn't react at all. He fell asleep so quickly. Suddenly, there was a man beside my pillow, and I wasn't used to it, so I didn't sleep the first half of the night. I fell asleep in the latter half of the night. I convinced myself, firstly, Gu Jingyan is my nominal husband. If he never shares a bed with me, rumors would inevitably spread in the household, hurting his pride. Secondly, he isn't a real man and can't do anything to me, so I might as well treat it like sleeping with a good sister. From then on, Gu Jingyan lay beside me every night. He wasn't a sound sleeper. Sometimes he'd gently turn over and accidentally pull me into his arms, making it impossible to break free. Up close, his face had sword-like eyebrows as dark as ink and a high-bridged nose. In his sleep, he was much more docile than during the day. I gazed at him, mesmerized, and it was a long time before I suddenly realized I was too close to his face, so close I could clearly hear his breathing. In her previous life, the legitimate elder sister married him. The legitimate elder sister desired marital harmony and wished to bear children to bring joy to their family, so she took the initiative to show him kindness. Gu Jingyan remained consistently indifferent and never shared a bed with her. Unable to endure it any longer, the legitimate elder sister confronted him directly, and only then did he reluctantly reveal the reason. I am unwell and unable to act. If you are unwilling, I can write a divorce decree, and you may marry whomever you wish in the future. My legitimate elder sister had originally agreed. However, my father said, the Prime Minister's residence does not keep divorced women. If you divorce, you might as well bash your head in and die. lest you tarnish the reputation of the Prime Minister's residence. Rather than saying my elder sister died of depression because Gu Jingyan neglected her, it's more accurate to say she was emotionally fragile and sensitive, and was forced into a corner by our father, with nowhere else to go. My elder sister could only remain in the regent's mansion. Even so, Gu Jingyan always gave her the full respect due to a princess consort, and never mistreated her in private. Thinking back now, I feel for my elder sister, and I also feel for Gu Jingyan. Held in Gu Jingyan's embrace, I could feel the steady beat of his chest. Gu Jingyan's long lashes, dark as raven feathers, rested over his beautiful phoenix eyes as he breathed evenly. Already deep in sleep, I wrapped my arms around him and whispered softly, having physical imperfections isn't your fault. In my heart, you're flawless. As long as you don't mind me, I'm willing to stay with you for the rest of my life. After saying that, I fell asleep. From then on, Gu Jingyan's gaze towards me became even more unsettling. My legitimate sister sent word that she was pregnant in her previous life. Her greatest regret was not having a child, but in this life, she finally got her wish. Overjoyed, I couldn't wait to run to the study and share the good news with Gu Jingyan. Just as I was about to speak, I suddenly realized I couldn't mention this in front of him. Bringing it up would only make him sad. Gu Jingyan leaned back in the pearwood chair, looking to be in a good mood. Seeing me approach, he set his teacup aside and asked with a smile, "What's making you so happy?" I walked over, hands clasped behind my back, swaying leisurely. "I've gone through all the account books of the manor and straightened out all the accounts. From now on, managing the household for you will be no problem. Wanqing is truly intelligent." He spread his arms, his eyes shimmering. "Come here, I'll reward you." Since I'd already been held by him many times before, I naturally sat on his lap and asked what good thing he was going to reward me with. He wrapped his arms around me and, without warning, lowered his head to kiss my lips. My mind went completely blank, my hands unsure where to place themselves. As I stared wide-eyed at the face so close to mine, Gu Jingyan closed his eyes, his eyelashes fluttering slightly, his breath uneven. My heart was pounding wildly. I didn't think to push him away, but I also didn't know how to respond, so I could only hold my breath tightly. Later, I noticed something pressing against the small of my back. Thinking it was some jade pendant or similar object on him, restless in his embrace, I squirmed a couple of times before instinctively reaching down to grab it, muttering, "What is this? It's poking me." He suddenly opened his eyes, his face flushed red. By the time I realized what was happening, he froze, and so did I. After a brief moment of locking eyes, I scrambled off him in a panic and bolted for the exit. A maid entered with tea and snacks, only to collide with me head-on, sending the tray of pastries crashing to the floor in a clatter. She knelt on the ground, repeatedly crying, "Princess, forgive me." I didn't bother to tell her to get up, and ran all the way back to my room, my cheeks burning. Could my legitimate sister have lied to me? That shouldn't be. Was I mistaken? But I was too thin-skinned to bring it up and couldn't face him for the moment. For the next few days, I deliberately avoided him, taking Xiaotsue out shopping during the day. Gu Jingyan said the household wasn't short of money, but I still wanted to save for him, comparing prices and haggling over every purchase. I never bought much, but the carriage was always packed. At night, I'd get into bed early, and as soon as I heard Gu Jingyan's footsteps, I'd immediately close my eyes and pretend to be asleep. He's been quite busy lately, sometimes not returning until after the third watch. That day, I vaguely heard him undress and get into bed, and I was so nervous I didn't know what to do, but he just lay down gently, saying, "Tomorrow will be quite chaotic outside, don't go out shopping." "Okay, good." Gu Jingyan kissed my forehead, without any further actions. The very next day, the Duke of Wei's residence was raided. The Duke of Wei was the maternal uncle of the current emperor and the elder brother of the Empress Dowager. His ancestors had held the highest positions in the court for 4 generations, wielding immense power. The prince's residence was just a street away from the Duke of Wei's, and one could faintly catch the scent of blood in the air, mingled with the piercing screams. This was the infamous Duke of Wei case that shocked the entire court. The crimes of the Duke of Wei are too numerous to record, and his current fate is well deserved. It happened in the previous life as well. But what shocked me was that in the previous life, the Duke of Wei's mansion was raided 7 years later, and the one who sent the Duke of Wei to prison was none other than Gu Jingyan. At that time, my legitimate sister had already passed away, and not long after the Duke of Wei's mansion was raided, Gu Jingyan also died. I couldn't make sense of it at all. Why was the Duke of Wei's case brought forward so much earlier? My legitimate sister and I were reborn, and everything, except for our marriages, followed the trajectory of our previous lives. My legitimate sister's fate has changed in this life, but what about Gu Jingyan's fate? Is there an inevitable connection between his death and the confiscation of the Duke of Wei's mansion? Feeling troubled, I had intended to talk to my sister, but she's been suffering from severe morning sickness lately, so I doubt she has the energy. Late summer brings much rain, and the bloodstains were washed away by it. Gu Jingyan stayed in the palace for several consecutive days. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared, accompanied by wind and rain. He certainly wouldn't be coming back tonight. After the second watch, there was a stir outside the door. Gu Jingyan came through the heavy rain, with the butler scurrying behind him, holding an umbrella. When he entered the house, the hem of his brocade robe was completely soaked, the hair on his forehead and temples clung to his face, and there was a faint stubble on his chin. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" His eyes were filled with concern. "I never thought much about sleeping alone before, but without you by my side, I suddenly feel uneasy." My words were blunt and straightforward. He was taken aback at first, but then his deep eyes gradually grew intense, as if they could set the world ablaze in the next moment. "Never mind." I rushed over and hugged him tightly. Gu Jingyan carried a pleasant scent of agarwood, mingled with the smell of rain. A scorching breath hovered above. Not running away anymore, he hugged me back, burying his head in my shoulder, chuckling softly. "You teased me last time and then ran off. You're so heartless, leaving me to take a cold shower." I pushed him, feeling a bit wronged. "You're just as heartless. You only sent a verbal message these past few days, making me worry sick." I was worried that his death in his previous life was related to the Duke of Wei's mansion, afraid that he would suffer a disaster, and also worried that he would not escape his fate 7 years later. From love comes sorrow, from love comes fear. It was this fear and anxiety that made me confirm my feelings for him. A dark current surged in his eyes as he almost frantically kissed my lips, embracing me as we moved from the doorway to the bed. The stubble brushed my chin, a little itchy. I was a little nervous, and subtly said, "I don't ask for much, don't push yourself." He helped me remove my hairpins and outer robe, and chuckled, "No pushing." I blinked my eyes, wondering if he was cured this lifetime. He just tucked me into the blanket, lay down beside me still dressed, his voice hoarse. "Little star, don't tempt me. I've been pulling all-nighters at the Ministry of Justice these past few days. I'm exhausted." I blinked again. Was he still the same as before? Gu Jingyan seemed hurt by my gaze, scrambling up and sternly questioning, "What's with that look? Don't you trust your husband?" Before I could answer, he had already lifted my blanket and slipped in. "What are you doing?" I was startled. He took off the jade thumb ring from his index finger and placed it aside, his Adam's apple bobbing, his voice deep. "Perform the marital rites." The exclamation in his mouth was steadied by him, his breathing heavy, as his dense kisses trailed downward. With his teeth, he tore open my undergarments, peeling me bare like a freshly shelled, tender lychee. The moonlight flows like water, and the red candle sheds tears. Tonight, just like on the wedding night, the moonlight is equally beautiful. I rose and fell in a sea of desire with his rhythm, at times like a tempest, at times like a gentle breeze. Gu Jingyan started off relatively gentle, but gradually grew more intense. Sweat trickled down his chest, over his abs, and finally dripped into hidden places. Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes, and I pleaded, "You, be gentle." He nibbled on my earlobe and chuckled softly, "If you can't handle this now, what are you going to do later?" I'm on the verge of tears but can't cry. This is what he meant by "I'm too tired tonight." This is what my elder sister meant by "the regent is incompetent." They are all liars. The next day, I didn't get up until the sun was high in the sky. Gu Jingyan had already gone to the palace, having instructed the kitchen in advance to prepare the awful 10-ingredient tonic soup for me. My body ached terribly, but my mind grew increasingly clear, bringing to light things I had long overlooked. On the wedding night, Gu Jingyan opened his mouth and asked, "Is it you?" He clearly knew I was Shenwanqing at that moment. Yet he had never met me in this lifetime. In this lifetime, the decline of the Duke of Wei's household arrived a full 7 years early. The Duke of Wei was Gu Jingyan's greatest rival in life, which was advantageous for him, and in his previous life, he married only my elder sister and took no concubines or side consorts. As a normal man, if there were no underlying reasons, why would he tell my elder sister that he had a hidden ailment? After he finished handling the case of the Duke of Wei's residence and finally had some leisure time, we shared a drink under the stars one splendid evening, with the crabapple blossoms in full bloom. Gu Jingyan clearly had ulterior motives, his hands wandering over me. Don't be angry anymore. That night was my fault. I don't want to sleep in the study again. I pinched his chin and glared at him fiercely. Gu Jingyan, you liar, you hid it so well. He even acted aggrieved. Clearly, it was the princess consort who said behind my back that I was in poor health, tarnishing my reputation. He also rubbed his face against mine. Besides, isn't the princess also hiding her true abilities? Indeed, I snorted coldly. Then let's say it together. All right, in my previous life, I married Zhang Reng. In my previous life, I missed you. They spoke at the same time, both being frank. He had also been reborn. But what he said was a declaration of love, while what I said was very strange. His lips twitched. But he still asked expectantly, in this life, why are you willing to choose me? First, let's rule out Zhang Reng. So I'm marrying you. He was speechless for a moment. I also had something to interrogate him about. You and my sister were husband and wife in your previous lives. Are you still unable to forget your old feelings for her in this life? Fabricated, absurd. Gu Jingyan's expression was agitated, but a hint of unnaturalness flashed across his face. In the previous life, she and I simply, I took a sip of tea. You are the regent, fully capable of deciding your own marriage. When the imperial decree of marriage came down, you didn't refuse, which indicates you were still willing to marry my sister. Gu Jingyan looked at me intently, then suddenly smiled, which made my heart flutter again. So my little star is jealous. He put his arm around my shoulder and slowly began to speak. I've never been invested in romantic relationships. Nor do I understand what love is, so I've never taken the initiative in matters of marriage. I figured everyone gets married eventually, and since I hadn't met anyone I liked, it didn't matter who I married. Besides, I wronged Shen Shuiwei in my previous life, so marrying her in this life and treating her well would be a form of compensation. Who knew? When I lifted the veil, I found it was you. Speaking of the situation at that time, Gu Jingyan's eyes sparkled with tiny glimmers of light. At that moment, I was thinking, isn't this the wife of Zhang Reng, the top scholar of the Hanlin Academy in my previous life? How did she become my consort? I punched his chest and said resentfully, how infuriating. You didn't expose me on the spot. At first, I suspected it was some treacherous plot, but then I saw you sneaking peanuts to eat and thought, what kind of scheme could a little glutton possibly have? Later, when I overheard your private conversation with Xiao Sui and learned that you and Shen Shuiwei had the audacity to secretly switch brides, I guessed that both of you had also been reborn. If Shen Shuiwei is willing to choose another good match, that's fine too. She is a wonderful woman, but I only feel apology towards her, not love. I shook his arm and couldn't wait to ask, what about me? How do you feel about me? Even though I already knew the answer, I still wanted to hear him say it himself. Perhaps it was not the wine that intoxicated, but the person themselves. After a few cups, Gu Jingyan's face was flushed with a faint blush, and under the moonlight, he possessed a captivating charm. Watching you bounce around the manor like a happy little rabbit, watching you carefree after a good meal, watching you uninhibitedly devour watermelon, watching you scold shiatsue with your legs crossed, you're so adorable, my mood brightens up too. He was utterly doting and deeply affectionate. It's a good thing it's you, and by some twist of fate, you became my wife. You had a difficult childhood. From now on, I will love and protect you, and I will never let you suffer another moment. Overwhelmed with emotion, my heart surprisingly ached intensely. I deliberately buried my face in his chest, afraid that the tears welling in my eyelids would fall. On our wedding night, I secretly ate peanuts and was scolded fiercely by Zhang Reng. But Gu Jingyan thought I was guileless. I walk with a bounce in my step, and eat with gusto, and Zhang Reng would scold me for not behaving like a proper lady. I can't do accounts, and Zhang Reng would only disdain me as incompetent. Whereas Gu Jingyan would confidently entrust the vast regent's mansion to me, instructing the housekeeper to teach me every detail. Zhang Reng never considered why I lacked manners, because one knows etiquette when granaries are full. I am but a concubine's daughter, and merely surviving is already incredibly difficult. How could I have the energy to learn music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and all those elaborate rituals? The same behavior, which Zhang Reng found vulgar, Gu Jingyan found endearing. Gu Jingyan felt pity for my past self and cherishes my present self. So this is what it feels like to meet a good man. After providing for my basic needs, he introduced me to a love I had never touched and a romance I had never dared to dream of. I was touched. But then Gu Jingyan's words ruined the atmosphere. He slapped me hard on the back and frowned in deep thought. Shinshuwa probably didn't fall for me in the last life, did she? She wouldn't have been heartbroken by me and deliberately found someone like Zhang Rang, who was inferior to me in every way. In this life, I couldn't listen anymore. I wiped my few tears on his clothes and looked up at him, glaring. Don't flatter yourself, Gu Jingyan. In my previous life, my sister was after your body. At most she wanted a child. Then what are you after from me? Food, all right, he said with a smile. I'll let you eat your fill. He picked me up horizontally, carrying me from the flower hall to the bedchamber, removed the jade archer's ring from his hand. And we ascended to the peak of ecstasy together. On his back shoulder, there were still the red marks I had scratched last time. Gu Jingyan kissed me soothingly and put the jade thumb ring back on his hand. I thought it was over. He twirled the jade thumb ring on his index finger, a wicked smile playing on his lips, and then pressed back down on me. It's quite good to wear it. He was truly rotten to the core. From then on, I could never look at that jade archer's ring the same way again. He found another way to bully me. Afterward, he held me in his arms and softly asked, in my previous life, I only knew you married Zhang Rang and never paid attention to you. Were you happy? I let out a long hiss, unsure how to answer. It's a long story, full of tears. On our wedding night in my previous life, Zhang Rang and I had a falling out. Later, we were either arguing or sulking. Occasionally, for a few days, we got along quite peacefully, and Zhang Rang would come to my room at night. His face slightly flushed. He first bowed deeply, then, choosing his words carefully, said, My lady, since our marriage, you and I have not yet consummated our union. Tonight, I wish to perform the rites of Zhou Gong. Is that permissible? He thought he was being polite. I felt stifled. These things happen naturally when the atmosphere is right. His serious question beforehand left me at a loss. Was I supposed to answer yes? It felt strange, like following a routine step by step. But I still saved him face and didn't say no. I softly hemphed. Zhang Rang said displeased. If my lady doesn't want to, just say so. No need to be like this. He flicked his sleeves and left again. This also put me in a very bad mood. Later, Zhang Rang actually reasoned with me seriously. My lady, I am not forcing you, nor am I a lecherous person by nature. It's just that there are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no heir is the greatest. If I cannot leave behind offspring, I will have no face to meet my ancestors in the underworld in the future. You are a woman. Don't you know that bearing and raising children is your duty? Hearing this, I became even more annoyed. I don't know, your Confucius, Mencius, and Laozi never told me, and it's not written in any sage's book how to give birth. I told him to get lost, driving him away while cursing at him. Forget it, just take a concubine. Find someone willing to bear you children. Don't worry, I'll never bully her. Once she gives birth, I'll even help her with her confinement. That's how memories are. Gu Jingyan saw my varied expressions and grew even more curious, raising an eyebrow. Discord? No, I admitted, we don't have that kind of thing. He couldn't believe it. I described the chaotic past. He laughed so hard he pounded the bed. Ha 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 ha. Not even a kiss, I added. A forced kiss between estranged spouses would haunt their dreams for nights. Gu Jingyan laughed even harder, nearly choking. I'd never seen him so utterly delighted. I changed the subject. But what exactly happened to you in your past life? I was referring to his hidden ailment. Gu Jingyan's eyes flickered with a dark intensity, but it was quickly dispelled by the tenderness in his gaze as he looked at me. Let's not talk about this today. I'm in a good mood. He held me and said, Don't ruin our mood. In the blink of an eye, autumn arrived, marking the young emperor's 12th birthday. Gu Jingyan was the young emperor's only blood relative, entrusted by the late emperor on his deathbed to assist in governance and mentor the young ruler. Whether in the previous life or this one, Gu Jingyan had always been diligent and devoted to his nephew the emperor, who in turn appeared to trust and rely on him deeply. I followed him to sit at the head of the banquet table, where my elder sister and Zhang Rang also arrived. The music stage was warm and lively, with the strumming of lutes and the blowing of pipes. Although it was a celebratory feast, some of the old ministers insisted on discussing court politics. They said that although the Duke of Wei's residence was indeed guilty with solid evidence, the Duke of Wei was after all the emperor's maternal uncle. and they pleaded with the regent to consider a lighter punishment, in my opinion. Gu Jingyan's sentencing according to the law is not inappropriate. The Duke of Wei met a tragic end because of his grave sins. If he knew the law, why did he break it? 7 years later in the previous life, at this banquet, Zhang Rang, with the courage of a newborn calf, directly questioned the Regent King. The Regent King has already reached the pinnacle of power. Now that he has dealt with the Duke of Wei, does he intend to monopolize all power? I want to stop Zhang Rang. But why would he listen to me? As soon as the words left my mouth, there was a sudden silence. Zhang Rang was demoted to a minor official at Yumen Pass, and I suffered a lot because of him in this life. Right now, the ministers are chattering away. Gu Jingyan leaned back in his chair with a casual posture, absent-mindedly twirling the jade ring on his finger. What does Minister Zhang of the Hanlin Academy think about this matter? I glared at him fiercely. Wasn't this deliberately stirring up trouble? It's fine if you want to make things difficult for Zhang Rang, but my sister is still pregnant. Are you planning to abuse your power for personal revenge and exile him to Yumen Pass again? I looked over with concern. I saw Zhang Rang and my legitimate sister exchange glances. Nodding in understanding, Zhang Rang stood up and said, "Neither humble nor arrogant, your humble servant believes that laws should not be abolished for personal reasons." The regent acted according to the law and handled matters fairly, with nothing improper. A huge weight was lifted from my heart. Compared to his previous life, Zhang Rang has actually made such significant progress. I quietly leaned close to Gu Jingyan's ear and whispered, "Do you think Zhang Rang might have also been reborn?" Gu Jingyan took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Probably not. I think it's better to be cautious. There's no reason for the three of us to be reborn." But Zhang Rang isn't. I found an opportunity when the fireworks were going off outside. My legitimate sister went to talk to other ladies, and Zhang Rang was standing by the river, with no one around. My curiosity got the better of me, and I said, "Gu Jingyan, I'm going to test him out. Everything I say next will be against my will, so don't be jealous." After saying that, I turned back and instructed, in case I unluckily run into my legitimate sister, to avoid any misunderstanding. "You must vouch for me." Gu Jingyan shook his head helplessly and quietly retreated to the bridge to keep watch for me. I walked over gracefully, stretching my voice to call out to Zhang Rang, "Brother-in-law." Zhang Rang was startled and bowed in greeting. "Greetings to the regent princess. Why so formal? We're practically family," I said sarcastically. "Besides, if my sister and I hadn't deliberately switched palanquins back then, I would have been the one marrying you." Zhang Rang was so frightened he nearly jumped, retreating 3 steps in a row, his pupils dilated and face deathly pale. "Your Majesty, please don't make such jokes. Since the exchange happened, it must be the will of heaven. Heaven has opened its eyes to allow a good woman like Shuiwei to marry me, meaning, I'm not good enough." I pouted, a look of resentment on my face. "Maybe in our past lives, we were the ones who were married." Impossible. Zhang Rang was furious and sternly lectured me. "It's already improper for you and I, a single man and a single woman, to be standing here. For your sister's sake, I won't tell the prince about today's events. From now on, I ask the princess to conduct herself with more dignity." My eyes darted around. "Lord Zhang, what do you think of the second daughter of Prefect Lu's family? I think she's good for bearing children. How about I find a matchmaker to introduce her to you, to be your concubine?" The second daughter of Prefect Lu's family was the concubine I took for him in my previous life, the one who bore 2 children in 3 years. Nonsense. Zhang Rang was so angry he could barely breathe, clutching his chest and saying, "I never thought that you two, both from the Prime Minister's mansion, could have such a vast difference in character and temperament." Shuiwei did not disdain my humble origins and condescended to marry me. "The least I can do is love her with all my might and strive to give her a better life. How could I even think of taking a concubine? That would be utterly heartless. Your Highness, the regent's consort, please refrain from speaking such nonsense." He turned and left in a huff, his steps swift. Since Zhang Rang remains devoted to my elder sister, I can rest assured. I returned to the bridge, about to speak with Gu Jingyan, when my legitimate elder sister approached. After a few months apart, her lower abdomen was already slightly protruding. I twitched the corner of my mouth. She couldn't have just happened to see what happened, could she? Without waiting for me to explain, she smiled and said, "My little sister is being mischievous. I've already asked. Our husband has no memories of his past life. How could everyone be like the two of us?" Blessed with the chance to be reborn. I chuckled and proudly pointed at Gu Jingyan. Mine here is a reborn one. Shin Wei froze for a moment. Meeting one's spouse from a past life was, after all, somewhat awkward. Gu Jingyan, with great composure, clasped his hands and said, "Sister-in-law, I hope you are well. In our past life, due to many circumstances, I did not treat you kindly. I apologize, you were not unkind, your highness is too polite," the elder sister replied gracefully. Returning the gesture, the two exchanged a smile, and the grievances of their past life were resolved. Zhang Reng suddenly appeared out of nowhere, having overheard our conversation, his face filled with bewilderment. "What are you talking about? Did something happen? What exactly is going on?" One after another, fireworks bloomed in the sky. The three of them covered their mouths, laughing in unison. After the palace banquet, I didn't want to take a carriage. So Gu Jingyan and I held hands and strolled outside the palace. The night was beautiful, but the streets were too crowded. Gu Jingyan didn't like crowds and wanted to stay alone with me. Pass the order, impose a curfew. Moments later, only the two of us remained on the street. He suddenly asked, "What do you think of my nephew, the emperor?" I said, "He is very respectful of you, but being too obedient is not a good thing. Now he fears suspicion, and in the future, he will surely be wary. Well, he's very afraid of me, and he never believes that I will wholeheartedly assist him." Gu Jingyan spoke of his imperial brother, the late emperor who had passed away. They had a deep brotherly bond since childhood, and before his death, the late emperor even entrusted his heir to him. I thought it was trust, but in reality, they had a backup plan. In my previous life, by the time I discovered I was poisoned, it was already too late. My imperial brother feared I would usurp his son's position. So he poisoned me with an incurable toxin and allowed the Duke of Wei's power to grow, using him against me. I kept my poisoning a secret, appearing outwardly as if nothing was wrong. Not even your sister knew. My body was already extremely weak. Sustained only by herbal medicine daily, I barely survived for 7 years, destroyed the Duke of Wei's mansion, and dug up my imperial brother's grave. It wasn't until I was on my deathbed that my nephew said he wouldn't bury me in the imperial mausoleum. My heart ached when I heard that. So, what he told my legitimate sister, "I have a physical ailment," actually meant this. So, he married my legitimate sister but never consummated their marriage, because he had known all along that his life would be short. It was already incredibly difficult for him to even stay alive. Gu Jingyan clasped my hand, his palm warm. "It's okay. I wasn't poisoned in this life, and the Duke of Wei's mansion has also fallen. What about the emperor?" He looked at me and smiled. "Once he comes of age, he'll realize he's impotent and can't have children." Gu Jingyan smiled. "Thanks to you for the inspiration." I was instantly a little dumbfounded. Reborn once, my sister and I secretly switched our husbands, yet Gu Jingyan had done so much behind the scenes. Fortunately, everything has turned out for the better. In the future, the emperor will have no heirs, and Gu Jingyan is his only blood relative. I still have to give birth to a child. Thinking of the past few nights, my legs felt a little weak. Gu Jingyan thought I was tired from walking and considerately asked, "Shall we switch to a carriage?" "No need, or I could carry you." I smiled and agreed, wrapping my arms around his neck from behind as he effortlessly lifted me onto his back. The road ahead was long. At the end of the road stood the regent's mansion. Our home. The past life was like fleeting smoke. Those heartaches and sorrows had finally become bygones. The green hills remain. The stars and moon shine bright. The one before my eyes is the one in my heart. The end.